So we've had, I think, a really wide-ranging discussion of nuclear, chemical, and biological weapons and related mechanisms and structures. We still haven't covered the waterfront, I know, and although I found both of your presentations, really, really very interesting and very helpful. We have a few minutes left. We've actually taken up more time than I thought we would. And I wonder, are there any questions I have plenty of questions, but I'd rather give you the opportunity to. So why don't I take, there's a person right here. And I think there are microphones, or we can just talk really loud. I don't know. Okay. I see a microphone right over here. That's great. Now I can see people out there. Okay. So,
greetings.
Great.
Greetings. Thanks. Liz Hanna from the Australian National University. Firstly, I'd just like to thank you for this session. It's been absolutely wonderful. And it's really heartwarming to actually see, this is really public health out there in the field in action. And it's a very small audience here, and no doubt you're very conscious of that. I think one of the issues for that might actually be the fact that there's not a lot of jobs. Not a lot of people are working in this field, and there are many of us who are actually interested in the area, interested in the whole thing in terms of chemical exposures and, that whole area. And people drift off to other areas because they can't get jobs. We do our PhDs in this area. There's, and there's lots of cross-interest. But I just wanted you to know that part of the reason why this is not a full auditorium is because the low numbers that are, even throughout Australia and elsewhere, who are actively engaged in this. But it's certainly, please don't take that as a reflection of lack of interest. Lots of other questions, but we're certainly interested in hearing more about it, because it's from Australia, we'd very much like Australia to have a larger part in that. And even just on that very point, where are the employment opportunities? For people who are actively engaged in public health, have been for a very, very long time. And, many have been, well, certainly in Australia, have been forced into early retirement because the jobs are lacking.
Yeah, thank you very much. Maybe in that regard, it's nice to hear. I think, as I started off the session today saying, this is not the sort of absolute core of the general perceptions of public health. And I know that well from my wife and many other colleagues and friends. But it is an extremely important area of public health, at least as far as I think we're all concerned. And we can solve, smallpox or polio or oral health or whatever you want, but unless we resolve these issues you've heard about today and many other related, things aren't going to improve very much. But Lawson, I wonder, could you say something about the IMS system in Australia? I think Australia's really been very active in the international monitoring system, right?
Indeed, yeah.
And they have a number of stations here. I don't know how many, but you obviously probably know.
Australia's been quite active. In fact, by next year, Australia will finish its segment of the international monitoring system. This morning, I visited ARPANSA, the institution that deals with radiation protection, not only for Australia, but for the Commonwealth. So we had an exchange today. So they're managing a portion of the international monitoring system that serves the CTBT, but on top of that, I think they're doing far beyond what the CTBT is for in terms of nuclear test monitoring. I think they're going as wide as dealing with radiation protection for the Commonwealth countries, and then as such, they're part of what we call IACRNE, the International Radiation Protection framework, which include the IEA, the CTBT, World Health Organization, and so forth. But in Australia, it's not only about the radio isotope. While ARPANSA is dealing with radionuclide, both particulate and noble gas, we have Geoscience Australia that deal with the waveform technology in terms of monitoring as well. So that's basically what is covered. And then they're under the national authority, which is the think, Department of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Australia.
Foreign
DFAT.
Affairs, Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, I think DFAT. I think they
DFAT.
call- Yeah,
That's
DFAT,
exactly what it's
yeah.
called, yeah.
Yeah. And Bob, do you want to say anything about, I mean, Australia, in my mind, has played a very positive role in many ways in the Chemical Weapons Convention, the Biological Weapons Convention. They pay their bills as well, which is a big issue in budget terms, as we all know. We haven't heard us talk about the numbers, but a lot of these multilateral organizations are in real trouble as far as budget is concerned, because certain major countries, we all know which ones, are not paying their bills, and a lot of small countries too. But Bob, I'll turn to you.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Yeah, thank you for that comment. I think it's very, very valuable and spot on. Yeah, just in terms of Australia's contributions, like I've been very lucky to be involved with some of these processes myself, including like in the mid-80s when Iraq was using chemical weapons against Iran. There was a UN investigation process took place, and my chief of division was one of the team members of that investigation team. And that took place when Bill Hayden was Foreign Minister. And under Bill Hayden's leadership, we formed what became known as the Australia Group. And it's now a group of 41 countries which have got export controls on dual-use chemicals, equipment, pathogens and biological equipment as a means to reduce the risk of proliferation of chemical and biological weapons. So this was a process developed in the mid-80s back in those days, just Foreign Affairs. In the late 80s, Gareth Evans was Foreign Minister, and he played a major role in the conclusion of the negotiation of the Chemical Convention. And in the late 1990s, Alexander Downer was then Foreign Minister. He played a role in trying to push for the protocol for BWC. So, Australia still continues to chair the Australia Group, and I think we still make a reasonable effort internationally in terms of chemical and biological disarmament. I think it's been a success story for Australia that I think we sort of took the challenge up and made a useful contribution. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. Other questions or comments people would like to make at all? I mean, we haven't touched on. Oh, is one in the back? Okay. Yeah, great. I see one way in the back there. Is there a microphone up there, or you just holler and see if I can hear you? Okay. Oh, we got a mic coming to you. So.
Thank you very much. My name's Jane. I'm from the north coast of New South Wales. I can't decide whether to be depressed about what we know about or depressed about what we don't know about. I just wondered how the panel views the war crime situation, in that we know that these countries have things and everything's retrospective and the damage is already done. I know that's a bit simplistic, but I don't know that Syria's a surprise that they've used sarin in this way. Whilst I was horrified, I certainly wasn't surprised.
So you're asking a question on Syria? You think?
Just in general, these countries that you know, as an organisation, has the capacity, and whilst you don't know exactly what they've got, you know that they do have either weapons or chemicals or biologics. I suppose as a naive question, is there anything the UN or anyone can do at all to stop these things happening rather than afterwards being reactive?
Yeah, I mean, I can respond maybe on Syria, but I'd welcome any one of us to do that too. Syria has been a real problem for a long time. You know, it didn't join the Chemical Weapons Convention voluntarily. It only joined it in 2013, and this was, 16 years after it was, actually 20 years after it was open for signature. We knew Syria had a chemical weapons stockpile. When they started using it in 2012, and particularly in 2013 in a really serious way, and killing thousands of innocent civilians with it, some people dismissed it as still a very small part of the Civil War, because the Civil War has had, estimated 400,000 people killed already. So the few thousand killed with chemical weapons is small compared to, the overall death rate in the Civil War. But others really felt that because it was only one of 5 countries at that point outstanding from the Chemical Weapons Convention, it was very important to begin to, take down these final 5 or include them in the convention. And it also, I think, precluded probably a military attack of some type back in 2013. So, we under the Chemical Weapons Convention, you can only inspect and destroy what the country declares. And so, the inspectors of the OPCW are not Inspector Gadgets, going around turning over every rock and every leaf and searching for stuff. You can only go to the facilities and all that they allow you to go to. And so we assumed that the 1,308 metric tons that Syria declared was the total amount. But I know that the what we call the DAT, the Declaration Assessment Team, DAT, from the OPCW, has had ongoing, very frustrating negotiations with Damascus. And it appears, we know now that it's been proven that by the United Nations and the OPCW that the evidence shows that the Syrian military, the Syrian Air Force, has been using chlorine on a pretty regular basis. And there were 3 instances that have been now fully evaluated. But now with this strike this week, which is new, if in fact it's shown to have used nerve agent, this is a whole new step up. I mean, chlorine is a dual-use chemical, doesn't kill very efficiently and very well, dissipates very quickly, is very volatile. And if nerve agent has been used this week, which we don't really know yet because there's no forensic evidence yet, the inspectors, as far as I know, aren't yet on the ground in the Idlib province in northern Syria. But I expect we'll find out once they're there in the next, they should be there with today or tomorrow at the latest, I expect. But we may find that Syria doesn't allow them in either. So if Syria does not allow them in, that's a telling sign as well, I think. But we'll probably find out that nerve agent was used by the Syrian Air Force. And these are all, illegal activities, illegal, inhumane, indiscriminate, banned by the Chemical Weapons Convention, banned under international law, and therefore obliges the United Nations to go after them as war criminals and bring them before the International Criminal Court. Unfortunately, I don't think there's much that can be done militarily, because you don't really want to attack chemical weapon facilities. I may have mentioned earlier, if you do that's why Obama didn't attack in 2013, or the Russians. If you attack them, you could put all sorts of civilians at risk. It may be worse than not attacking. So I think the only pressure we have is really political and economic, and I think we have to potentially squeeze Syria as much as we can. I do think, though, if it's proven that Bashar al-Assad has been involved and condoned these attacks, then his credibility is now absolutely zero and at a real tipping point. And I think any political settlement will, at this point, not be able to include Bashar al-Assad and his colleagues. There was some statements by Trump this week, President Trump, on this, and saying maybe we have to, put up with Assad for the next few years. I think this is really the tipping point, the final blow to any credibility for Bashar al-Assad, and it also really undermines any sort of Syrian credibility and influence in any of these organizations we're involved with, multilateral organizations. It shows they've been absolutely lying to the states' parties. And that doesn't go over well in The Hague and Geneva and Vienna. So there's no simple solution to this, but I would urge everyone to watch the news. We'll be talking, I'm sure, publicly on this, and particularly look for the fact-finding mission, the FFM from the OPCW, and what they learn this week and next week. They have to do forensic sampling. They have to interview witnesses, interview medical personnel, review video if there's any at all. Find remnants of the bombs that were dropped, sample that, keep complete custody of all the samples, bring that all back to the permitted and tested laboratories that we have under the OPCW, And then we'll get a lot of forensic evidence will be very, very comprehensive, I'm sure, on what was used, how it was fired, and potentially where it came from, the perpetrators themselves. I don't know, do you want to add, anybody want to add anything? No? Okay. Thank you. We're over time a little bit. Our timer here says almost 7 minutes overtime, so I know it's late today. It's the 4th day of the conference. I'll be around all day tomorrow. I, as a final word, just really want to thank Dr. Zerbo for coming all the way from Vienna for this meeting, as well as his assistant who's here, David Jepson, and also my close colleague and friend, Dr. Matthews, who came all the way from Melbourne today to do this. So I really appreciate it, and I thank all of you for hanging in there this long. This is an important issue, and delighted that you've had the patience to listen to us for 2 hours. Thank you all very much.